Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to our
Yes.
brand new podcast studio.
I am so excited about
Wow.
this. Yeah.
So we just thought we would celebrate several things. First of all, welcome to one half of the podcast series that happens here at South Coast Church. One half is Sisterhood, obviously the better half, and the other half being Manpower Podcast. But so it's been a while since we've had episodes up on both of our podcast platforms. So what we thought we would do is to celebrate our brand new podcast studio. By the way, thanks to Jared behind the scenes and all of our team
Yes, that's right.
for getting this ready. But it's an interesting season as we've come into November now.
Yeah.
This is a fun. Not only is this a fun season, now that I'm just thinking about it, November is also a very special month in our family.
Yes, a very special day coming this Saturday. Yeah, you want to go ahead and say it?
No, you go ahead.
It is the love of my life's birthday,
my birthday.
Saturday. And
That's
he
right.
already is waiting for his lasagna and his gifts, and he likes birthday cake as much as a 5-year-old boy. So we'll have a big birthday cake and celebrate. So, yeah, November and December are great for us.
You know, and we took Caroline to Disney World for her.
So
We finally
fun.
delivered on her Christmas present from last year, and we took her just a few, not too many days ago, and so we were at a restaurant, and then all the characters came,
So
and it was all the characters from Winnie the Pooh. And so I don't know what your favorite Disney character is, or maybe you're not into Disney. I don't know, but Pooh was a big thing in our house.
Right.
Anna had
Anna
a
loved it.
Pooh, always had one carrying around, but it got me thinking, especially about this podcast episode, that there's an episode, and when our kids were little, of one of the Winnie the Pooh cartoons, and it was a season of giving. And there was this thing, and I wrote it down. It's so funny. Pooh says it at the very beginning, and so does the narrator. It says every season brings a reason to be giving.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times people think of kind of October, November, December, fall as like a giving season, kind of the final quarter, if you will, of like the financial calendar or whatever. But every season, especially in the life of a follower of Jesus Christ, every season there's a reason for giving. But for some reason, there is a focused time here on our calendar anyway, in the United States and around the world of giving and how significant it is. And for us right now, coming into November, as we're coming into our season for Heart for the House offering, which is our annual offering every year that we do. And, you know, we have a unique testimony about just generosity and giving. We've been married, is it 33 years this year? Is that right?
Coming up, yeah.
So in December, we'll be married 33 years. And so a lot of you know our story, but, you know, Tracy and I both grew up in church, but we have a unique story once we got married as far as what giving looked like for us.
Yeah, I mean, we just got married, and just like everyone else, you have, you know, you're just really, when you first get married, you're terrified that you won't make it because you've never had to support a household and even another person and things. And so we were continually writing down our bills, and, you know, and so, you know, two people can survive pretty well. So we partied pretty hard those first 2 years.
How do you mean by, party?
Not like party, but we like, if there was a cruise out to eat,
Oh,
you know, if we couldn't afford it, we just put it on a credit card because we were not going to stop the fun.
We went to the mall a lot.
We went to the mall a lot.
Yeah, we did.
Well, then we started having children, and they came, you know, as you know our story, we had 5 in 5 years. So we had a
Still makes me just
nauseating,
quiver.
isn't it? So we had to start getting serious about this thing called life, and we bought a house in a suburban and had these 5 children. And when Rose was born, you guys know the story, she was like, what, 3 or 4? 3 when we had Caroline, then Caroline was not quite 1 when we had the twins,
Right.
and then when twins were 2, we had David. So it all came at a bunch. We had no insurance with most of them.
Yeah.
And so the few bills that we had just seemed like they grew.
I still have nightmares of like negotiating with the hospital
Right.
of how we were
right.
going to pay these bills. And by the way, hospitals, I don't know if they still do, they do negotiate.
They do. Everything's negotiable.
Everything's negotiable.
We learned that when we
That's
were
right.
having all them. So anyhow, we had, you know, we just spent these years where we were paying bills and wiping butts, and it was just like they got bigger. It was like they just got so big so quick, and so we had a mountain. And so we literally, we love Dave Ramsey. Your brother works for Dave Ramsey, but
he does.
before then we didn't have that, and there really wasn't a lot of television shows. So we got a legal pad and just started writing down the bills, and we were newly at this, and so every now and then we'd be like, oh no, remember we got to put the tithe. So we'd squeeze the tithe into the
Back up
front,
to the top,
you know, above the first line. But it was, we were honoring God with it. And so, God just started helping us make it, not necessarily succeed until we got to the church that we say that changed our lives.
Yeah, right.
So we drag all of our little kids in there. I remember the twins were in the Fearless Fours.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how early we started going to this church. And we really needed it because we needed our thinking enlarged.
Yeah.
And we just thought, okay, we're making it. No one's foreclosing on us yet. But
so our mentality really was just barely making it.
It was survival.
Yeah.
It was
both physically and financially.
They are toddlers. They should be the head of every boot camp thing to get people in shape.
I say it's like negotiating with terrorists.
They are
Toddlers
so demanding.
They're very demanding.
And it's 24 hours. There's no 9 to 5. They're like, we've had our first little grandson spending the night with us, and he just bosses us around in the middle of the night. So they are terrorizing, but you make it through. So we got to this place, and I remember our pastor, they were starting to build a church because we were just overflowing because it was such a good live word. So we sat there with all the thousands of people, and he started talking about paying for a car with cash or
being debt free.
We're like, no way. We thought only people
or building
like
a church debt free.
building a church debt. But we thought people in their 90s were debt free, not people, in
like
their
you had
30s.
to work your entire
Right. So God exploded in our mind, and we realized that was the hope that he had for us. And so, we just kept being tithing, faithful with the tithe and careful with the rest.
Yes.
Faithful with the tithe and careful with the rest. And so we really were that for years and years.
Right.
And we not only got like where we were doing really good, then God started blessing us with more. And
started blessing our business. I mean, it was unbelievable.
The more you would serve, the more you would give, the more he would make time.
Right.
I mean, he would pour into the time that you did in aviation. So it really began to be a life of from survival to miraculous, wouldn't you say?
I would, yeah.
And so then, you can probably share this part of the story where God called you to go to Bible school.
Yeah, so in the midst of that whole thing, many of you know our story. I was in the aviation business, had been for a long time. And so I had my own business. We had gotten to that church, had been there several years at that point. And God was really just blessing us in so many different ways. And we're sitting there in church one day. I think our pastor started talking about Bible college, and we were sitting there with our kids, and I was running a business. You were teaching school. Our kids were all in these crazy ages, and they said, hey, would you like information about Bible college? And I don't know why. I guess it was just the Holy Spirit in my heart. I put my hand up. I got that pamphlet about the school and started my journey of Bible college. It was correspondence, and kind of that was the predecessor of online. So I went online, part-time, nighttime, daytime, until finally I went full-time and finished Bible college, not really knowing that was part of the testimony of just all that we were learning and all how God was impacting us through this life-giving church. Little did we know that years later God would lead us to plant a church. But after all those things have happened, now here we are. We've just celebrated our 12th anniversary as a church at South Coast. Every year, just like I mentioned, this is kind of that season for us.
But wait. The whole thing is you got called to go plant a church.
Yeah.
And John said, well, if God wants to pay for their church, I know he would like to pay for our house. And
How could I forget that? Right.
You said, God, if you really are calling me into ministry, help me to go debt free. And really, I just thought, well, this will be years. I can just relax here and might go to Oklahoma. And God did it within a matter of months.
Literally, we were sharing just with a couple earlier that we were sitting down with earlier today, that when we determined in our hearts that we really had a dream that God wanted us to go into full-time ministry and plant a church, which we didn't even fully comprehend at that point. We just said a prayer.
Yeah.
God, if you want us to do this, we want to do it the right way. We want to do it. We had seen a debt-free ministry. We had seen debt-free lives. We had sown into a debt-free ministry. And really, we did what we call the largest deal we'd ever done in the history of our business just a few months before we left to go into ministry. And it allowed us to pay for our home off, our cars off. We were completely debt-free when we stepped out into full-time ministry. And now as we look back,
in our early 40s,
God gave us the desire of our heart.
Right.
But not only that, it was just through that revelation of putting God first, living a generous life, not just with our finances. I mean, we were at the church. I mean, we were serving, you were teaching, I was coaching, we were giving. I mean, there was just this season of, like you said, we spent less time on our own endeavors, more time really serving and giving and leading. And God was so God supernaturally blessed us in a way that is just, it is ridiculous. It's hard to even explain in the natural. And so when we came to Mobile 12, almost 13 years ago now, to plant South Coast Church, we did it debt-free.
Debt-free. And
God answered our prayer.
We've seen people since then say, well, we're debt-free, and literally it's just because they paid everything off and moved. We literally paid everything off and sold the house and came here and bought a house.
Yeah.
And so God was saying, when you obey me,
Yes.
with the first and
Right.
careful with the rest, I will do more than you can ever imagine. And so many times we think that our dream is about us to be debt-free, and that's a godly dream. But it reminds me of the story where Hannah, she was just like, I want a baby, I want a baby, I want a baby.
Yeah.
And God, she had her house in her heart, but God had his house
Yes.
in her heart.
Yes.
So there was so much more to us being debt-free. God wanted us to bring what we received to Mobile. So we really have heard so many testimonies of people that have become debt-free and financially successful in all kinds of ways because of what we're getting ready to do.
Well, and so the season that we're in as a church right now, in November, as we've entered into this season, is kind of our Heart for the House season. Like every year annually, we have a Heart for the House offering. And obviously this podcast is not necessarily just about that offering, but I think this podcast in this season for both Sisterhood and for Manpower is to kind of set us up for the season to have a heart for the things that God has a heart for. And so when we say Heart for the House here, we don't just mean for the church, we mean for all the things that the church, God's church, is involved in. Yeah. And so when we say Heart for the House, it's really encompasses our local ministry that we do here in Mobile, just in the community, our national ministry that we do through planting churches and disaster relief and all those kind of things, but then also internationally. Because, Jesus said, go locally, go nationally, and go to the world. And so that's really what it focuses on. And so, we do a lot locally here. We have partners in the city. I think about just the list of people that are organizations, not all of them Christian organizations, but most of them are, but they're making a difference in the city. And we as a church commit every year to give financially and to serve in all these different areas. And it's always such a blessing, the testimonies that come back locally. I mean, not to mention like the We Heart Mobile truck and those kind of things, right? When we go to communities and stuff.
Literally, that's what God designed us to do. And I always say that generosity is the heart of this house.
Yes.
The fact that we could just sit here and go on and on about all the miracles of the building that we're getting ready to, that we're in the process of building,
right.
But in each individual's home. And so when God you see how faithful and how miraculous He is, you're actually looking for opportunities to be generous. So generosity is the heart of the house.
I don't know if you said this earlier. Maybe it's just sticking in my mind because I know we've said this before. When you have a heart, because you said it about Hannah, when you have a heart for God's house, I mean, God's heart obviously is for your house as well. Right. And when you commit and when you live to give, and when generosity is the heart of your house, it just overflows into so many different areas.
Attention.
It really does.
He knows He can do that. But I know they do lots of local stuff with We Heart Mobile here, and
our truck's amazing.
The Heart for the House offering takes care of that. And so when we see that someone needs bunk beds or needs shoes or all kinds of food that we send out every week, the Heart for the House truck or the We Heart Mobile truck comes back and tells me stories that I'm like, no, little people that are in really desperate situations get to receive something that just gives their heart some hope. And we always attach God to that thing so they know that it came from God. And so our people are very generous, in the city. I know that a few weeks ago we got to go to an elementary school here that's a year-round school. And so we heard through a principal really, that when they're off for 2 weeks, a lot of these children just barely are eating. And we're like, no, not on our watch.
That's right.
In our city will this happen, and we want these children to have more than enough. So we loaded them up with these 2 bags as they got onto the bus, and they knew the next 2 weeks they were going to have all the snacks they needed. And
breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks.
All kinds of stuff. And one little girl goes, they were like, well, you can share it with your siblings. And she goes, I'm hiding mine under my bed. And I was like, that's a girl.
She likes some snacks, right?
I can agree with her. But it's just It's just, it literally is the heart of our church.
Well, and another thing we're doing too, you've got one of the hearts, We Heart Mobile, the Sacks of Kindness. So every year we do Sacks of Kindness in our church, and we ask our church family to grab a sack of kindness, and there's a list of needed items. And so people have been grabbing hundreds of those this week and next week, and they'll bring them back, and then we'll go out locally and we'll bless our community. We'll bless really 3 specific areas of our community. One is a school, the other are 2 areas in the community that really need a lot of love. And so that's just part of what we do, and it's part of what Heart of the House is for, our Heart for the House. But then also nationally, we do a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we know, many of you know that we're a part of ARC, the Association of Related Churches, and we plant churches all over the country. And I could just read off statistics. I think we're getting close to 1,100 churches locally or nationally and around the world right now. So we give into church planting. We've never stopped. Since we planted our church in September of 2010, we've never stopped investing in church planters. In fact, you and I get to go up next week and help more church planters that have a heart to go into local community and plant a life-giving church, because we really believe the mobilized local church is the hope of the world. Not just the church, the evangelistic, mobilized, outreaching church is the heartbeat and the hope of every community. And so that's why we love planting churches. But then also nationally in our missions focus, it helps with like disaster relief.
Right.
You know, Hurricane Ian just came in.
Yeah, and down the south, we know what hurricanes feel like.
Oh, man, it's hurricane season right now. I think we're at the tail end of it right
Thank
now.
God.
Yeah, we're getting close. But, you know, we were able to partner with, like, Pastor Matt Keller and, you know, Next Level Church and what they've done. And we were able to, because our church is so generous, you know, this offering sets us up to be very strategic so that when something happens, we don't have to wait to take an offering to respond. The resources are already there in the church, and we have margins so that when something happens, we responded within 24 hours to what was going on down there. And so just little things like that help the national focus.
And it really does help, because I know churches have budgets.
Yes.
And these kind of things could really hurt a church's budget. So we sent funds down there, and we saw them getting just pallets of water and then hot food for these to pass out.
The thank you video was so cool.
Yeah, and so I mean, God wants us to share. I mean, that is his heart, that his children would share. And so when you see that going on, you're like, yeah, this is how it's supposed to work.
And then internationally,
I love it.
You know, I know you love missions. You've traveled a lot since we've been here, and of course, even before we came to plant the church. You know, being in Guatemala, you know, down there with your brother in the orphanage and stuff, and so both of us have a heart for the world, as I'm sure anyone that loves the Lord does. But so we as a church, many of you know, have an invested interest, you know, long term in Haiti, and through our Bible college there, through the children's home that we support, feeding programs, we're sponsoring classrooms now. You know, our church is sponsoring several classrooms. In fact, I think we sponsor 2 third grade classrooms, which are close to your heart because you taught 3rd grade.
I love it.
But so
when you see all those little children flood in after school, so they go to school really early, like at 7, so they get out about 2, and the feeding program starts at 2, and the feeding program takes place in the church, and so the doors are open, and the women have like pots like this, and they've been cutting open garlic. Like fresh garlic, the pot's that full, which is so good for people. Rice and beans, and they're ready. They've cooked all morning, and those kids come in and have a hot meal.
Hundreds of kids.
Hundreds. They flood in, them and their dogs. It's the most beautiful thing.
Jared, I know you've been to Peru. Jared's behind the scenes, but you're going to Haiti with us sometime. You got to go down there, and you got to see this feeding program. Peru was amazing. It was amazing. But
Jared and I could say that we're one of the few people that have actually put on Tom's shoes on little kids in the mountains.
That's right. You did, didn't you?
So it's life-changing. But missions always are, because most Americans, we all have so much we can share.
I tell people this all the time. People say they don't have a heart for missions. I always tell them this: go on a mission trip. Because when you invest your heart, you'll then have a heart for what God's doing. But you know, in addition to what we've done, of course, Tracy, we've built a church in Haiti. We still support Pastor Raymond and his family there,
and a feeding program there now.
And a feeding program there. That's right, we do a feeding program in the Mountain Church. But we just recently, over the last couple of years, you and I got to go to Africa with Compassion. And invited us to go on a trip and show us what they do. And if you guys know anything about Compassion International, just an amazing organization. And so our church sponsored a village there. And when you sponsor a village there through Compassion, I mean, it's through the local church, but it hits everything. It's education. It's certainly faith because it's connected to a church, but then it's health care. And it kind of takes care of not just a child, but the whole family and the whole community. And so we sponsored a village there.
Right.
But then we heard about something else that they were doing.
Right.
And so just most recently, and again, Heart for the House, I go back to that. This gives us the ability to
Right.
respond when we see a need.
Right.
So this new focus that we have in Rwanda is pretty amazing.
The
Just say a word
Infant
about
Mother
it.
Survival Program, I
Yes.
think what you're talking
Yes.
about. And we got to go to this, and John and I got to go on a trip where we're checking it out because obviously this is us as a family, and all of our giving goes out into the city, the nation, and around the world. But we always like to make sure the places are,
Oh, yeah.
you know, all that they say they're going to be. So we went on
Right.
this compassion, what would you call it?
It was just kind of an informational trip, and we went. It was right before COVID,
Right.
and we went just to kind of see the work that they do, because before you invest anywhere, you want to make sure there's a good return on your investment.
That's right.
Yep.
And they're doing all that they say they're doing. So we went around to all these different things. We actually got to go to an infant mother survival program. And it was beautiful because I have motherhood here at South Coast
Oh, your small
Church.
group, yeah,
My
yeah,
motherhood small group.
yeah.
So the small group, they come in with their babies, and it might not look like a huge thing, but it is huge
Yeah.
because 20, 30, 40 sometimes mothers come in, they put their babies in childcare, and they get coffee and a donut, and we talk and share about God, and they share they lighten each other's loads.
Oh, yeah.
Well, then we get to Rwanda, and this is literally what they're doing. The mothers are coming in the daytime, and they were making coffee, and they were
Yes.
learning all kinds of skills, and they're being advocated for, and
Yes.
they're helping one another, but it's all done in a local church.
Yes.
So my heart just soared, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is exactly what we're doing at home. So this is great that we can do it somewhere else. And I tell the mothers here, and I believe it's the same everywhere, the healthier the mother, the healthier the baby.
Right.
And so the rate of survival has just skyrocketed since this has started.
I think they said there's a 95% survival rate, right, of babies in this program, because before they saw that it was the babies and mothers were not doing well. They weren't surviving.
That's right. And they come and they get to hear about God and help each other
Right.
and learn skills, but then they also leave with food and needs that they have. And so it just makes the load lighter, just like here at South Coast. And so we're doing that there in Rwanda. And really, when I say where you all,
That's right. That's right.
you all are doing it. And I think it's amazing.
Well, I just want to go back to something that I read earlier today. 2 Corinthians 9, it talks about how you don't give under compulsion, you don't give under pressure, and those kind of things. But the last part of that verse, I think it's verse 7, it says, God loves a cheerful giver. And I think what you and I connected with years ago, and what I want to encourage everybody with, I think, in this season, and just maybe for this Manpower Sisterhood joint
Woo,
fall kickoff podcast, is that, if you've struggled in this area, just with generosity, or just that idea of giving or serving, or just getting outside of yourself, it is the heart of God.
Yeah.
It is the heart of God. I've heard this said for years. Many of you have to. You're never more like God than when you give. Mm-hmm. And so, if I could encourage anybody, and I know you would say the same thing, when we connected with this as a family, I mean, we started an outreach at our church years ago in the church that you mentioned earlier. We didn't know what else to do, so a friend of mine, he said, come go on an outreach with me. And so much like the We Heart Mobile truck, in fact, that truck was a gift given to us before we planted the church. That we started an outreach in the community here in Mobile. Before we ever had our first service, we were already doing outreach in the community. And he told me, he said, one day you'll plant a church, do an outreach. And I was like, how are you going to do that? And we did.
Yeah.
But not only did we serve, we got our kids involved.
Yes.
So every week, our kids were going out with us, serving the community. I remember Caroline on the back of that truck handing out bread and groceries and just to families. And I think if you've never had the opportunity, whether you're involved in a local church, and if you're not, get involved in a local church. Find a church that loves the community that they're a part of. Get in, get involved, do what they do, catch the vision. That's what I love. We just sat with a couple a few minutes ago, and they were like, we love our church because it's impacted us, it's challenged us, there's accountability. So I think maybe this is a call to action.
That's right. And everyone's born selfish.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's just the heart.
You don't have to
I
work
mean,
hard at that.
No, when little kids think about Thanksgiving and Christmas, all they're
Right.
thinking about is what they get. But as you grow up, you know, especially if you're a child of God, you start learning that it is more blessed. It is more fun to actually
Yes.
give. But I always tell people, because we've taken our children out since they were little bitty, and they've never stopped serving God and serving the community, it is the antidote to selfishness.
Yes.
It is literally what will stop your child, because then they start seeing it is more fun to take care of other people than
It
just
is.
get. And so build your life on it and it'll work.
So, I just want to remind everybody. Obviously, this is our
Yes,
joint kind
sisterhood.
of. You know, we haven't dropped an episode. I know Manpower hasn't dropped an episode in a while, and I think Sisterhood hasn't either.
Oh,
so we're
we're gonna
dropping
say
this
no.
on both platforms. But we also want to let you know that there are new episodes coming up.
Yes.
For the end of the year, so look for those, and I hope everybody just has. We probably won't get a chance to talk to them before. Maybe we'll before Thanksgiving.
Oh,
I know
we
Thanksgiving.
will.
So I don't know if you're going to fry turkey. I don't know if you're going to roast a turkey. I don't know if you're going to smoke a turkey. I don't know what you're going to do. We may do all three, but it's a season of giving.
Yeah.
It's a season of love. It's a season of generosity. So wherever you are in the world, whatever opportunity you have, hey, be a giver. Be a giver this season. And again, look for more episodes coming up.
Oh, we look forward to sharing with you what all is in our heart.
Yeah, and again, don't you just love our new podcast
Yes,
studio?
we're so excited.
God bless you guys. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch and to listen. We love you, and we'll see you soon.